Ago, 2 days before I was about to get married, my father died. And the next day, which was the day before I got married, there were church services for him. And he had been very friendly with our pastor, Pastor Gibney, his name was. And they actually socialized, my mother and father and Pastor Gibney and his wife, all the time. So they were very close. So this is a story about my dad. So at the I guess the funeral you call it, at the service, he said he came up to the podium there and said, and he held up a rock. He just held up a rock, and he said, "This was given to me by Mel Siskind, my dad, and let me just read the inscription on it." And he said, "The first stone." So those Christians know that that's kind of funny because Jesus said, "He who is without sin cast the first stone," and my father had it. He had the first stone, so he was without sin. Guess it was funny back then. I don't know how funny it is now. Anyway, the next day I got married, and I had no idea what happened to the stone. But I figured my brother had it because he was 2 years older than me, and he was kind of more in charge of what was going on with the funeral and all this other stuff. So I figured he had it, and I never did ask him. So, and a while back, probably a few years ago, maybe more than that. Actually, it was 10 years ago. My brother died, and I went to where he lived, and he and other people were going through his stuff to make sure to see who got what and that sort of stuff. So I was looking for the first stone, and it wasn't there. But I know what he did have. He did have a bunch of photos of my father that he got from his sister, our aunt. She had a lot of photos of him in World War II when he was in Africa or something like that. He was actually a sergeant in charge of WACS, or Women's Army Corps. So that went on, and then I just dropped the whole thing. And then one day, our aunt, who was very old at the time, she was in Manhattan, and we went in there to see her. And I brought her a surprise, and here is some old black and white photos of my dad. And she just took each one and just stared at it and stared at it. And then the next one and the next one, and it just went on for a while. And she started to nod off a little bit. So I thought she did this to me, and she got up and she's walking back towards the bedroom. And we're just talking. I'm talking to my cousin, her daughter. And finally she comes walking out, and she's got something in her hand. And what she gave me was this. I didn't have it for about 40 years, and now I have it. If you knew my dad, and if you knew me, this is funny. And I got it back. So I now have the first stone because I don't know, shit, I missed the ending. So I now have the first stone, which means so I now have the first stone, so I am without sin.